So what are we doing? Wait, the Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is September 5th, 2023. Bender, tell me something, buddy.
Today is Tuesday. We skipped right past Monday because it was a holiday, and tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow is Wednesday. It is. It is. And they want to talk about a book that is beige, I think comes out tomorrow. What do you think about it?
I think if you pick up the beige book, it's supposed to be the black book, looking for a freak to call.
It's
to
got
pick
to
up
be
the phone and dial the 7 digits and said, yo, This Marquise, baby, are you down with it? That's what they should do.
Well, I hope you rested up because we have a week full of landmines, time bombs, whatever you want to call it, being slathered all over the freaking place this week with Fed speakers going off every 8.7 seconds, including the Europeans also firing off lots of words. We get additional data this morning, 30 minutes after open factory orders. Car sales came in light month over month. So there's that. Tomorrow's data should be, about the same. We get 30-year mortgage rate. We get mortgage applications. We get composite PMIs also tomorrow morning after open, along with ISM non-manufacturing. So there's plenty of stuff being tossed around. The price action, last night into this morning was pretty freaking weird. Dip, make multi-day low, if you will, on the NASDAQ, and then up and then down, and then randomly, I guess, off of Waller's comments a few minutes ago, which weren't all that, what's the word I'm looking for? Dovish. We get monster green candles just gobbling up anything and everything in its path. So with a day like today and these candles forming out the way they are, Bender, it's kind of funky out there, man. Kind of funky.
Kind of funky. Yeah, you ready to get into that?
Yeah, I remind me to tell you, I believe that I saved a bat this weekend.
A bat.
I believe I saved a bat.
Well, that's good. Bats are important.
Bats are very important. They scream like all bloody hell, man. It's like when they scream, it's just like, oh my goodness, you're so small, but your teeth are so sharp looking. It's really, really wild. Really wild. But I believe I saved a bat.
Was it Dracula?
I'm hoping it's Batman. I tried to talk to it. Every time I tried to talk to it, it started screaming at me like just this high pitch, just squeal. And then when I went to check on it, it would hiss at me. So I'm not real sure that we're pals, but I believe it flew away after a couple of days of rehab and conversation with me. So it did eventually fly away. I can say that.
Well, good. All right. Oh, I'm going to have to get rid of... I don't like that either.
We got cool lines on our display over here.
I don't want them there. I clicked on something, and now we have these lines. We've got design stuff that I really don't want to have there because I think it...
space age, man.
Yeah. I'll have to figure out how I did that and how to get rid of it. Anyway, all right. Well, what I have up here is just to compare the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ futures on the daily chart. And the reason I want to show this is because if you look at the NASDAQ here, the NQ, you can see these daily candles pushed up into this daily fair value gap. It also broke above its highs from back on August 4th. So it pushed up into that daily fair value gap and is pulling back off of it, right? And we have this little daily fair value gap in here with a volume balance below it that this candle traded down into and wicked, pushed right back up off of it, right? And if you look over and compare that to the ES and the Dow, they haven't made it up there into that daily fair value gap. You can see ES, you can see this candle down here with this volume imbalance above. This is where that daily fair value gap sits, just above there, just above 45.48. So it hasn't made that same push up into that daily fair value gap, and neither has the Dow. All three cases, you can see there's this daily fair value gap, that green box sitting below. We remember those candles. We remember that day. But you can see that that's sitting just below, and the ES and NQ have not traded into it. The Dow has, right? So I'm going to be kind of watching the Dow for potentially some sort of indication as to, you know, what the next move is. But bigger picture is that, at least for now, you know, this looks like this bounce in here, 34,059 on the Dow, this bounce and push up and pull back into this fair value gap is not bad. That's a good look, at least for now, right? And even in an uptrend, you know, not every daily candle is going to be green, and right now it's only put in one down candle in here. Now that could change quickly, as we know, but I show you this because, you know, I don't know what they decide to do with it today or tomorrow or the next day. But what I do know is that if the ES and the NQ decide to follow suit and pull down into this daily fair value gap, and the Dow continues to hold in here, that would tell me that it's likely going to pull down in here and push higher. Why? Because the Dow has already done that. And if ES and NQ pull back into here and the Dow continues to hold in this fair value gap, and is unwilling to go lower, that would tell me that there's a good chance they pull down into here and then bounce, and then they all kind of get into sync together, right? You can see on the Dow there, you've got this volume imbalance in here. There's another daily fair value gap in here, another volume imbalance down here. So there's things for it to go down and get. But for me, it's all about, does it continue to hold and maintain this fair value gap here on the daily? And then I'll just kind of keep tabs on that in comparison to the ES and the NQ. So that's kind of the daily picture. We still have that August 4th high sitting out there on the ES, along with that regular trading hours gap and that volume imbalance up in here. So on moves up, you know, those are still targets. There's all this. If I take this and I just kind of throw a box right up in here, all of this is still hanging out there as far as stops, liquidity, that sort of thing goes. There's been a few wicks above, but it's not like we had a candle that, you know, really took all this out. So it's all still hanging out up there. Doesn't mean they won't save it for later, but it's all still there. So now we kind of have the daily picture comparison of the big three here. Let's get into an ES. Here's a 60-minute chart. And, as Hells mentioned earlier, we've kind of had lower, 60-minute chart here. And then we made this swing low down here right at 4,500. There you go. So 4,500 tested and held. If it comes down here and breaks that, this is where the fair value gap on the daily sits for the ES. So you've got this, the top or the bottom of this swing low here, which sits 44.9625. We were talking about that level last week. So I think if we, if it comes back down and takes this out, it'll probably take out 96.25. And then if it can't reclaim that, right, that becomes resistance. Well, then you see what's below, all this crap below, and it likely comes down and fills this stuff in, which would probably be good for, under 96.25 if it can't reclaim that. My guess is it's probably good for another 30, 40, 50 points down. You could see, let's go into a 15-minute here. You can see there's a lot of just one-sided action here in these candles. And then ultimately, this is kind of the big level down here under 4,400. But staying on the 15-minute, again, that swing low right there, right at 4,500. And now we've got, I'll be watching this guy right here. I was really kind of hoping they were going to save this until the market opened as 45.17, just kind of bounce around in here and keep that for later. But you got the Asia session high, which it'll probably go for 45.21.5. And, you can see it coming into the top of this 15-minute fair value gap right here. Gets through that. You can see this candle, this 15-minute candle in here. And then you've got relative equal highs up here. 45.31.25. If we're going to continue to the upside, that's likely the draw. Right there, you can see how all these wicks kind of topped out right in there. This one was just slightly lower, but all your stops are resting just above that level. If we get up above 45.31.25, that's where you really need to pay attention to the 1-minute candles, try to get a read on, if we get that candle that pushes through, not just a wick, but pushes through and then pulls back below, and that becomes resistance, then that would tell me that that was the draw, and now it can pull back down. If it gets through, leaves a fair value gap behind, uses that as support and holds it, and then makes another candle higher, then it's probably going up here to that 45.48, and then ultimately targeting that previous high up at 45.60.75. And I think that's about it.
All right. Very, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Sonny, what you got, buddy?
Oh, dude, I got so much news today. I really do. I'm not lying today. Well, I wasn't lying last week either, but anyways. Europe composite PMI, services PMI fell across the board. So we kind of saw some dips on that earlier. Europe seems to be having a much harder time than we are out here. So, and like you said, there's some European speakers starting tomorrow, later today also. So, for those who play up the London session and others, could get some nice move there. NVIDIA and AMD are at a couple of tech conferences starting today, the Evercore ISI 2023 Semiconductor Conference and the Goldman Sachs Tech Conference. So we may see some AI news, supply chain, things like that coming out for both of them. Intel partnered with Tower Semiconductor. It's a $300 million deal boosting their foundry business. Kind of interesting because Intel was trying to buy a Tower Semiconductor. They didn't get all the approvals. So now they're just doing other partnerships. Foxconn said their August revenue dropped by 8%. Now, Foxconn is one of the larger manufacturers for Apple. But on the flip side, Apple said they've seen a subscriber boost from Messi MLS debut, and they gained about 150,000 new subscribers to Apple TV. So that's good for Apple for now, especially on the services side. SoftBank ARM IPO, that their valuation is about 52 billion for now. I think their IPO is this week. They're pricing it at between 47 to 51, but I'm sure when it actually opens, it'll be much higher. Some of the major investors are Apple, NVIDIA, Alphabet, Intel, Samsung, AMD. Warner Brothers, so they are forecasting lower profits for the rest of 2023 due to strikes. So look for flow on Comcast, Disney, things like that to the downside. Disney is also set to provide a clearer picture of ESPN's financials as it becomes a standalone unit. Some estimates are roughly about $300 billion in revenue. And the partnership with Penn for online gambling. So that would be definitely interesting to look out for when that data comes out. New York is set to ban short-term rentals starting end of this week, which could mean some downside for Airbnb and others in that sector.
So I just want to understand. So New York State or New York City
New York City.
is going to ban Airbnbs?
Yeah. You cannot do short-term rentals. You can register with the mayor's office, but if you do short-term rental, you have to be present. So you cannot rent out a whole apartment and things like that. You can rent out like a room if you want to. Yeah. So that starts end of this week. So they have a whole bunch of exception rules, but it's all convoluted. Basically, they're saying, anything less than 30 days is not allowed. And if you do, you have to register, follow a whole bunch of different rules to do that.
Seems quite interesting.
Yeah. And this is like, after they got the pump that Airbnb is getting into the S&P 500. Thursday, Friday that came out, it got a nice pump. So this will be interesting to see if they file any lawsuits to block this or extend it out.
Yeah, no, I find it impossible to believe that there won't be, a flurry of lawsuits.
Yeah.
My property, my choice. That
exactly.
No, maybe. Yeah.
Well, the case they're building is because most of these are owned by like corporations, or even if the one or two, by the people, it's affecting affordable housing. I don't know how they're making the link or what they're doing with it, but that's the basis for it. It's Affordable Housing Act they're using as the
cute.
Yeah. Baidu launched a slew of AI applications after they got approval last week. It did get a nice push. I'll definitely look for more flow into Baba, JD, and Baidu on this. So there was a auto show in German. They were talking about a lot more push from the Chinese EV makers into US and Europe. And NIO, XPEF have already talked about it, how they're going to be coming more into Europe. And NIO did talk about US market as well, that they're going to be pushing for it. And last bit of news, Goldman Sachs is more optimistic about the US growth. They've lowered their recession odds over the next 12 months to 15%. but they do say if there is a rate increase, then the risk of recession rises to 60%. Upgrade downgrades, AXP, DPZ, Keys, LOW, Lulu, NTAP, Oracle all got upgrades, price target increases. Downgrades was just GIS and SPR that I kind of found interesting. So if you downgrade SPR, you have to look at BA flow also, since they were one of the bigger suppliers for BA. SPX range for today, I'm still waiting on data, but for today's range is 44.85 to 45.46. Once I get the gamma data, I'll post it in the channel.
Thank you, Sonny. Appreciate all that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stonkington.
What's up? I'm here.
So I thought about you on Saturday after the passing of Mr. Buffett, and your tribute to him, if you will, beforehand. Very, very odd timing. Very odd timing. But I don't know. Take the wheel. What you got, man?
Yeah, we've been wondering. I mean, you took that trade. We used the song to make a green candle. Was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
I don't know. Something to reflect on. R.I.P. Mr. Buffett. Let's get into some stuff. I'll attempt to do some sharing over here. We've got some good things to look at. Let's see. All right, here we go. We got the smash burger. We had an alert. Friday's price action popped it. And so Mr. Larry Williams would still technically be short. And it would be working because his stop would be above Thursday's high. So that's something that we can kind of keep in mind as we move into this week. If we take a look at the SPY, SPY has not broke. It's 18 cents away. So I still have this alert that will pop here in the room if we were to break below Thursday. No, I guess that would be Wednesday's low, and then so we could still use that because we didn't, this candle didn't close above that high, so it would still technically be in play over there on the SPY. Again, just a technical setup, basically failed breakout that Mr. Larry Williams back tested the shit out of, and it's a good strategy. So just kind of some context there. If we jump in, I can kind of go quickly through the NASDAQ. Bender gave his look at the daily fair value gaps. Last this high of this candle to the low of this one. So I threw these fibs on just to find the midpoint, and you can see the reaction right there. We had this daily fair value gap that was the high of this candle to the low of this one, which, because once we got a candle close above, would potentially be looking for this to work as an inversion gap, work as support. We'll see. So that's why I've got this line marked. If we lose this 15,249.50, then we've got the big daily fair value gap below. And then above, we've got new week opening gap, pink box. And then we've got this little fair value gap on the 4 hour that was left behind in the overnight price action. Also looking at the 4 hour, kind of see a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So we'll see what we get, something to be aware of. Jump over to the Russell. All right, so we have Russell, small new week opening gap above. We've got this 4 hour fair value gap that we've now pushed up into. Orange lines are going to be this old weekly gap. So we'll see. We did not get this last candle close above. We had one close above there. I guess this would be this week, right? Yeah, so we had this close above last week, which would potentially give us room all the way down to here, hoping this orange line at the bottom would work as support. And then we've got daily gap that goes basically the high of these candles here up and through here. This all potentially could work as support based on that weekly candle close. So if we continue to the downside, I'll be looking first level reaction to this 1900. And then if we lose that, be looking for that 1889. Let's see, got a little bit of time here. I was going to take a look at AMD is a good setup here. On the weekly, we had a lot of weekly inside bars on semis. So we're going to be getting alerts that will pop in the room for the break outside of some of these weekly inside bars. A lot of semis. Microsoft was on there. We talked about Microsoft last week. Kept banging off that 327 level, so we'll watch for that to hold. But we've got this weekly bull flag, and then if we throw on the fibs, we can see off this last run up, they started buying right at the 618 retracement there on AMD. So I think that could be a good watch, potential weekly bull flag setup, which was interesting because looking at the SMH, let's see, is this where I had? No, I don't think this is where I want it. Let's check out the SMH over here. That one. All right, so yeah, we've got fair value gap above on the SMH potentially, and then this volume imbalance above that. So potential draw up, and we know that there'd be some bears with break-even stops well above up there. Also, we've got a dark pool below here on SMH. That was the big one from back on August 22nd. We'll get an alert that pops in the room when that one hits. And then let's see, just for hide all that. One thing that was interesting too, drawing fibs. If we took the high to the recent low, the shorts are at the 786 retracement. So on the SMH, we'll see if there's any reaction to that level. If not, I think, you know, if AMD pops a weekly bull flag, I think we could kind of keep going there on the SMH. I think that's all I got.
All right, a couple of things. I'm going to be watching Apple around both 187 and 185.50 as far as tell signs in through there. As far as Apple, 187 and 185.50 to see what the price action is and around there. Because we have rate announcement, I believe, next week, and because I believe that a rate increase is not priced in really in any capacity. Data this week as far as PMIs are going to be, and ISM manufacturing is going to be even that much more important, as is any type of job report that comes out this week, which there is. At the same time, we have a lot of jawboning scheduled for the week. A lot. So if we're talking about, you know, setting the table for next week, we have to understand that we have to be very nimble and not get too comfortable with what we're doing this week, because everything this week is going to be setting the table for next. So from that standpoint, I strongly encourage you, take your gains where you have them. Be very, very nimble, because if there's anything that we've seen, at least pre-market, some of these candles are thick the way they're coming through. And if you're not protecting yourself with a stop, it can really, really work your ass in the wrong way. So that's all I have, guys. You have anything else?
No, nothing additional from me.
Nothing additional. All right. Everybody be safe. Everybody be smart. Let's have a good week. Thank you for listening. You guys have a good day.
See ya.